I think North Carolina's going to give them a run in the ACC.
Boy, I'm glad you brought him up.
I know North Carolina lost some running backs and some receivers, but I mean, they got the most proven quarterback in the conference, who's a hell of a player.
And I tell you about North Carolina, man. One of the things I like about North Carolina, they got a transfer running back from Tennessee named Ty Chandler. I think he is going to be dynamic, especially when you lose Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, two guys who, hell, man, either one of them, and they even had games where both of them ran for over 100 yards. So that was
tell who was who.
Fact that was a big blow, but they get Ty Chandler from Tennessee transfer, right? They lost two receivers, but listen, one of the receivers that they lost, Naomi Brown, his brother, Kafre Brown, he's on the team now. But I'm gonna give you a name of a guy though, offensively, a guy named Josh Downs. He's gonna be Sam Howell's #1 target this year. He's gonna be his #1 target, and I want everybody to look out for Josh Downs because the young man gonna put up a lot of numbers. He's a smaller guy, but you know I like them small guys, Coty. That's right up my alley. I like them little small, shifty guys, man.
I'm going to be honest with you. As a DB throughout my career, the hardest guys for me to cover was the quick, shifty guys.
That's why I be trying to tell people.
It's hard to get your hands on them. Those bigger guys, they just want to wrestle with you in a phone booth, which is okay because they're not going to get away. And then it's just about making a play on the ball. They may catch some, you may knock some down. But those little quick, shifty guys, if you don't touch them, they gone. And that's the game of football now. If you look at the game of football as an offensive player, you got to be able to make people miss in space. As a defensive player, you got to be able to grab people in space. If you can't do that at any level, you can't play because that's what the game is now. The game is all about space. So I'm looking forward to seeing North Carolina, and I'm also excited about them because they start the season against Virginia Tech. That's a hell of an opener for both teams to jump out in front of that Coastal Division.
Bro, I gotta give a shout out to Mac Brown because, man, recruiting is everything, right? Mac Brown came to North Carolina, man, and he's recruiting dogs. Like, he's getting them dogs. You look at, I think it was 2 years ago, that Clemson should have lost that game against North Carolina 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
Now, those guys on that defense that gave that offense hell, those guys are older now. They got Vahasek on the defensive line. They got the Fox brothers, Tamon and Tamari Fox. Listen, they got two linebackers who were stars. Jeremiah Gemmel was a star linebacker last year. Listen, they have players in play. And I take it to the secondary. Tony Grimes, Don Chapman. Those guys are, and they coached by Dre Bly, a guy who did it at a high level in college and NFL.
He's the truth.
So I'm looking forward to seeing North Carolina, man, do their thing.
Speaking of Dre Bly, a lot of people may not know this, but he trained Stephon Gilmore before he got the UNC coaching job. Like when he was,
I didn't know that.
When he was just going through transition, a couple years leading up to Stephon's Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and that specific year. If anybody's going to have those young men right, it's Dre Bly. I mean, his resume speaks for itself as a player, but the fact that he was able to help Stephon take his game to another level, that's all you need to know. I mean, if I was a defensive back and I had the option of, go work with Dre Bly or go work with this guy, I would strongly consider him because he's been where I'm trying to get to at the highest level.
You know, another thing that's going well for North Carolina this year, you know who they avoid this year playing? They avoid Clemson. So they wouldn't meet Clemson until the ACC championship game. So they can go undefeated, lose a close game to Clemson in the ACC championship game, or Clemson can lose a close game to them in the ACC championship game, and possibly both teams still get in. Especially, I mean, where they started at in the season, they'll both be in the top. At that point, I would be guessing in the top 5 if both of them are undefeated. But I want to talk about another team too, Miami. I think Miami, man, you mentioned De'Aaron King, but Miami have 2 solid running backs too, Jalen Knighton and Cameron Harris. I like those guys, but I want Miami to be careful with De'Aaron King coming off that ACL injury. Last year, man, he led that team in rushing attempts, and coming off of ACL, that can't happen. They got to let them 2 workhorses in that backfield do their due diligence. They got a grad transfer from Oklahoma, Charleston Rambo. to go with Mike Harley and the rest of that receiver group. So I think they're going to be solid there. I think the offensive line going to be better. The only place I'll say Miami, you could throw some question marks is their defensive line, right? Because they got Phillips that went to the NFL, Rasul went to the NFL, Roche went to the NFL. So now they're in a situation where when they used to didn't have to worry about the defensive line, now they got to figure out who's going to rush this passer. Who can we count on a consistent basis? But I think Miami playing Alabama in that first game of the year, they have an opportunity to make a statement, right? When Alabama has a young quarterback, they have an opportunity to play him early in the year and take advantage of the situation.
Good luck.
You're right about that, because them boys stacked at Bama on defense.
Man, listen here.
Them boys stacked on defense at Bama.
Alabama is stacked at every position. And this is something that I'll say. I know Clemson, and I hope the Clemson fans, when they hear this, don't get mad at me, but this is the honest to God truth. I know Clemson says they're wide receiver U, but when it comes when it comes to receivers stepping foot in an NFL building and being day one ready, there's nothing like those Alabama guys. Every Alabama receiver that I played their rookie year, they were as polished as 3 and 4 and 5 year veterans in the league. I don't know who their receiver coach is or what they do, but those guys, I mean, hell, look at them. Like, they're everywhere. Those guys come in the league so polished. And that's not a knock against Clemson or any of those receivers, because that's where my heart is. Like, anybody who knows me knows I bleed orange. But those Alabama receivers, when they step foot in that NFL building, they ready. So I guarantee you they got 3 or 4 guys licking at the chops to get an opportunity this year.
Look, and I'm finna name them for everybody. I'm gonna start with Julio Jones. Day one ready. Amari Cooper, day one ready. Calvin Ridley, day one ready. Jerry Jeudy, day one ready. Henry Ruggs, day one ready. Jalen Waddle, day one ready. And then you got Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner, day one ready. Listen, I don't care what nobody say. I agree with you. Alabama is wide receiver U.
That's just facts. Like, the proof is
wide receiver U.
You can't take that from those guys.
Now, last thing, man, I want to touch on is you look at the ACC net. I want to say ACC football, rather, and you look at the Heisman Trophy talk, right? Heisman Trophy candidates. You got 2 guys in the ACC right now who are Heisman Trophy candidates, and I'll start with one, North Carolina quarterback Sam Howell, a guy who threw for over 3,500 yards, had 30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, had a 61.1 completion percentage last year. I think this year is big for him because of the simple fact that he lost so much offensively. I think he has to step his game up even more. And he had great numbers last year. Right. But I think when you lost so much in the receiving core and you lost the 2 running backs, I think you got to be that much better. Now, they return every offensive lineman back on the O-line. They return everybody coming back. But I think for him, he has to be the guy that leads the group. He has to be the guy that sets the tone, right? He has to be the guy that makes those plays that we expect Heisman Trophy candidates and Heisman Trophy winners to make.
I agree. And I think this will be a chance for him to truly showcase his talent and maybe catapult himself into the number 1 pick. You know, he has that type of opportunity this year, especially with losing all those guys you said from last year. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, everybody knows he's talented. It's just about him putting it together and stringing together some victories. And it's going to be interesting to see for sure.
Now, the next person I got who's a Heisman candidate, Clemson quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei. Oh my goodness.
Big Cinco. I don't know how to say his last name, so I just call him Big Cinco. I know he got a chain that says that too.
that Pop's a bodyguard, so he come from that family of being around, right, big name people. And a lot of people don't look at that trait, but I look at that trait because when you have people like that who are used to being around certain things, the moment never gets too big for them. And we've seen it last year against Boston College. Trevor Lawrence couldn't play due to COVID reasons, right? It's okay. We got Big Cinco in there. We're going to throw DJ in that thing. He showed up and showed out, right, against Clemson and Notre Dame. Now, a lot of people coming into this year, it's like, oh yes, Clemson's losing Trevor Lawrence. I don't know what we're gonna do. Listen, I'll tell you one thing. Clemson not worried one damn bit about losing no Trevor Lawrence, because what that man DJ Uiagalelei showed me last year, all he was waiting on was to take control of that team and grab that offense himself. Because what he showed me last year, he showed me it was confident. Showed me the moment's not too big. And he showed me when Trevor Lawrence went to the NFL, he was going to be ready to take over that football team. Now, I think to his credit, you look at that receiver room, they get Justin Ross back. That was huge. That was huge for Clemson. Another freshman that showed up last year when a lot of those guys was out, EJ Williams, he's solid. Joseph Ngata, he's solid. Frank Latson Jr., he's solid. You know another thing about these Clemson receivers? You don't have no little piss ants. Nah. You don't have no little piss ants at that receiver. All them boys 6'3" and over.
They playing basketball.
6'3" and over, man. So he can literally throw jump balls and let them guys go get it. But I think that group is going to be even better this year than they were last year, because they got their feet wet a lot more last year when they played the game.
Clemson is another school, man, especially at the receiver position, that they just reload. I remember my senior year, the receivers we had on the roster was DeAndre Hopkins, Sammy Watkins, Martavius Bryant, Adam Humphries, Jerron Brown, Sharon Peete.
Look, I don't mean to stop you real quick, but when I heard all them fellas was on the same squad, I said, how in the hell that they didn't win a national championship with all them boys on the roster?
We was just figuring out how to win. When I first got to Clemson under the Bowden regime, we had a lot of talent, but we didn't know how to win. Sweeney brought that winning mentality and organization to the building, and it took a couple years for it to get to where it is now. But we always had the talent. I mean, listen to those guys I just named. But yeah. I think this receiver group will have similarities to that group I just named. Like I said, I think Justin Ross is one of the best players in the country. You know, if he wouldn't have had that neck injury last year, he probably wouldn't be there right now.
Nope.
Just being completely transparent, you know. So it'll be exciting to see. They're going to put a lot of defensive backs on their heels for sure. Because Big Cinco got a cannon.
Man, what?
And he got guys that can go out and get it and play basketball and just out-rebound you. So
now I'll say the only thing
I think to see how they get creative with all those guys, because it's only one football.
Exactly. But I think another thing that's going to help it, though, the running back room, man. You lose Travis Etienne, but you got Lynn J. Dixon, a guy who's waiting his turn. Kobe Pace, a guy who's waiting his turn. Young freshman running back, Will Shipley, who's waiting his turn. So I think they're going to be able to do it. But I'm looking forward to seeing both of those Heisman Trophy candidates, Sam Howell, DJ Uiagalelei. I'm getting that name down the correct way. I'm doing my thing. I've been practicing, Coty. I've been practicing, man.
Right. Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you liked what you saw here, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment. Interactions like that really do help grow the channel, and they help more people like you find this content. So if you liked what you saw here today and you want to help me out, that's all you got to do. See you on the next video.